When was the last time you stopped to look at one of these while driving? Most likely, you didn't stop. No one did. That was the whole idea. The Bedford TK was so ubiquitous and ingrained in British culture that the majority of people never ever considered asking what it was, where it originated, or why it eventually vanished. They were constructed in excess of 620,000. They installed the phone lines that linked your house to the outside world, delivered your groceries, and transported your coal. During the Gulf War and the Falklands War, a version of this truck traversed the deserts. Additionally, a Bedford TK served as the model for Fireman Sam's Jupiter, the fire engine that millions of British youngsters grew up watching on television. There was this truck everywhere. After that, it vanished. We're going to discover the precise reason today. Additionally, some of the information you are about to learn, especially the true cause of this truck's disappearance, is something that the authorities would prefer you never give much thought to. Fact 1. The British truck's American secret. This is the first fact regarding the Bedford TK that most people are unaware of. It was never exclusively British. The engine of the TK, which Bedford introduced in September 1960, has American engineering roots. The renowned Chevrolet Stovebolt six-cylinder engine, a smooth-running overhead valve design that engineers of the era hailed as being way ahead of its time, was a major factor in Bedford's early success. Bedford's gasoline engines carried that American heritage nearly all the way to the brand's demise. And the TK's cab style? Transatlantic as well. In the 1950s, Bedford's parent firm, Vauxhall, had already adopted a distinctive American-inspired automobile style. Bedford did the same. Thus, there was a truck with American blood subtly coursing through it that was sold to British builders, farmers, and delivery drivers. It was parked outside British high streets and ascended British country lanes. Why is this important? Because it reveals something crucial about the true nature of the TK. It was not constructed for performance or status. It was designed to function. It incorporated the most dependable and tested technology into a useful, reasonably priced body. And it proved to be nearly impossible to kill that combination. Fact 2. The design choice that modified British highways. This is the unexpected part, though. Most drivers were unaware of the audacious choice engineers made during the Bedford TK's design that distinguished it from nearly every other truck available at the time. Instead of hiding the engine under a large hood, they put it behind the driver's seat. We referred to this as forward control design. The driver had a clear, expansive view of everything in front of them because they were seated in the very front of the car. Not a long nose. There are no hidden corners. Just the road. Additionally, the TK could carry a larger load on a shorter, more agile vehicle as the engine no longer required a wide hood in front. The fact that this one design decision revolutionized British industry was something that most people were unaware of. With a reduced footprint, you were able to carry a bigger payload. That was actual money saved each and every week for a haulier operating on congested city streets. According to contemporary sources, the TK's forward control cab design was seen as a daring move for the UK market when it first debuted, and other manufacturers quickly imitated it. Imagine getting behind the wheel for the first time. There isn't a bonnet in front of you. All you have is a broad, flat windscreen and the road just in front of you. Drivers who recall it report feeling confident and appropriately in control. Fact 3. The flaw that drivers never cared about and mechanics never forgot. However, mechanics throughout Britain were all too familiar with the hidden annoyance that accompanied that same ingenious cab design. The cab of the TK did not slant forward. It was securely fastened. Rivals like the Ford D series featured tilt cabs, which allowed you to quickly access the engine by folding the entire cab forward. The TK. Mechanics had to use flaps and side access panels on the outside of the car to get to the engine. Some maintenance personnel saw this fixed cab as a true black mark against the TK, according to contemporaneous observers. Nevertheless, and this is what's amazing, drivers hardly gave a damn. Why? Because the engine underneath was so straightforward, easy to understand, and forgiving that it could be maintained under nearly any circumstances by a skilled mechanic. Because of the TK's strong reputation for dependability, most operators saw the fixed cab as merely a small annoyance. The rarity of that level of confidence between a working guy and a machine is something no one discusses. These weren't affluent businesses with service agreements and backup cars. These were one-truck builders, farmers, and tiny hauliers. They didn't work that day if the vehicle didn't start in the morning. The Bedford TK got underway. Each morning. That was all. Fact 4. The truck that played with kids and went to war. This is where the Bedford TK story becomes truly remarkable, since the truck had a double life that most people were never aware of. Its military cousin, the Bedford MK, was getting ready for active duty on the other side of the globe, while one version was parked outside your neighborhood bakery making a morning delivery. The MK was produced in considerable quantities for the British Armed Forces and was first introduced in 1970 as a four-wheel drive version to replace the previous Bedford RL. They generated more than 50,000. It was used in Northern Ireland. In 1982, it visited the Falkland Islands. In 1991, it participated in the Gulf War. Later, soldiers who operated the MK in challenging terrain remembered, with sincere admiration, that it could go places that even tracked armored vehicles could not. That's a big statement. That truck, which is being driven over active conflict zones and desolate terrain at the outer reaches of the planet, is based on the same basic design as your neighborhood coal lorry. The other aspect of this double life is also there. Fireman Sam, a British children's television program, debuted on the BBC in 1987. A 1974 Bedford TK served as the model for the show's fire engine, Jupiter, the red vehicle that won over generations of British kids. The same vehicle. Quietly, the most cherished fire engine in children's television history was also the one that carried milk and fought wars. It is nearly impossible to view the Bedford TK in the same light after learning that. Fact 5. The true cause of the Bedford TK's disappearance, and it wasn't the truck's fault. This is the portion of the narrative that is rarely discussed. And it's the most important aspect. European truck manufacturers, including Volvo, Mercedes-Benz, and MAN, were investing huge sums of money in innovative truck technology by the late 1970s. Tilt taxes, engines with turbocharging, comfort of the driver, fuel economy. The competition was fierce and the truck market was changing quickly. To stay competitive, Bedford needed investment. Additionally, its American parent firm, General Motors, had the funds to supply it. However, this is what really took place. The automotive division of Vauxhall was the primary recipient of GM's European funding. Vehicles that were displayed in showrooms. Vehicles that were observed. For the majority of the 1970s and into the 1980s, Bedford trucks, which operated silently and inconspicuously in the backdrop of British life, were left to survive on little fresh investment. The bones of the TK were from 1960. It remained essentially the same truck by the 1980s. Not because it had failed, but rather because no one had made the necessary investments to advance it. According to a recent industry review, the Bedford truck line had grown progressively antiquated due to a lack of significant product investment over many years rather than bad engineering. Bedford finally added turbocharging to the TK's diesel engines in 1981, creating the Red Series, which produced 72 and 102 brake horsepower, respectively. Drivers who noticed the difference had vivid memories of it. It was a real improvement. However, years of underinvestment had already created a gap, and it was too late to close it. In 1986, the Dunstable facility shut down. In 1987, AWD purchased the site. Additionally, the final Bedford TK exited the production line in 1992 after AWD itself fell into receivership as a result of cheaper competition and the collapse of its market. There was no ceremony at the conclusion. It ended quietly, as all successful endeavors do when those in positions of authority lose interest in them. Even now, there is something about the Bedford TK that makes it difficult to forget. The truck wasn't the fastest. It wasn't the most glamorous. It never garnered attention at auto shows or won prizes for its interior. It had a far more subtle and long-lasting effect. It appeared. It turned the key and it worked day after day, decade after decade. It simply, dependably, and honestly worked for farmers and fire departments, soldiers and telephone engineers, tiny hauliers, and big businesses. Over 620,000 of them were constructed over the course of 3 decades. They put out Britain's fires, connected Britain's telephone network, and protected Britain's soldiers. They unintentionally became a part of British culture and were so well known that most people didn't notice them until they were gone. Because the Bedford TK failed those who relied on it, it did not vanish. Because the company behind it took decisions that led in a different direction, it vanished. And it's important to understand that calm, recorded, and truthful reality. Have you ever worked with or driven a Bedford TK? Perhaps you saw a TK fire engine at your neighborhood station when you were younger, or perhaps your father drove one. In the comments section below, share your recollection. The only individuals who can genuinely remember these trucks are those who knew them. Share this story with someone who might share your feelings if it reminded you of something you hadn't considered in a long time.